it's like a battle. People want to scroll. They just want to scroll. That's what they want to do. And you're trying to make that pattern interrupt. You're trying to break that. Businesses is actually human AI collaboration. It's not AI replacement, it's human empowerment. You're working with Excels, well, you should use my, super Excel solution. That would be better, right? Everyone is telling you to change the way they work into something, into X, but X is actually not the future. X is a very wrong path to follow. Human AI collaboration creates just new roles and gives space for new agents to fulfill different processes.
So now we are live with Amos Bar-Joseph, who is the co-founder and the CEO of Swan AI. You built a startup with autonomous go-to-market GTM engineer, and really, really excited to jump into it today, Amos. So thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Jordan. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, just at the very beginning, if you could just give a very, not brief, but an overview of exactly what Swan AI is all about.
Yes. So our customers, they actually call Swan lovable for GTM. It's an AI go-to-market engineer. It's kind of like a developer that works with sales and marketing, sometimes founders, to turn any go-to-market idea into an agentic workflow, an AI agent, basically, from prompt to pipeline. So you can really scale demand and revenue with intelligence, not headcount, and iterate on your go-to-market at the speed of thought. So Swan basically can work amazingly well with your CRM, has access to B2B databases, so it can find contacts, enrich contacts, research accounts, research online, qualify, things like that. It can update records in your CRM, assign owners, change, move deals, and update records, etc. And it has outreach capabilities. It can send emails and LinkedIn DMs and connection requests on your behalf. And you can just take all of that capabilities and just build agents that are triggered from different events and can use these capabilities as you go. And we have customers building amazing agents, from agents that can convert website visitors into qualified pipeline, agents that can learn about your closed loss and brief the right reps, agents that prep you for calls. The use cases are super exciting.
And what's really, really cool about all of this is just not just that you're building this like autonomous go-to-market engine, but at the same time, I really, really liked your story as well with all of this. And some of these numbers might need to be updated a little bit, so please correct me with a few of them. But just a few months ago, you were able to grow the amount of people that were using Swan AI. And last I saw was like 130 companies were using it. And your goal is basically to get to the 1 million revenue with just 3 founders at the moment, if I'm not mistaken with any of this.
Yeah, let's touch up the numbers a bit. So yeah, we almost doubled the number of customers since that was published. And our goal as a business is to get to $10 million ARR per employee, actually. So what we're trying to change the narrative of how you scale a startup or a business today, from valuation inflation to value creation. And we think that revenue per employee is the most important metric in the AI era, basically. And we think that founders, leaders, and operators should focus on that specific metric, because it is the best proxy for an AI native company, because what it really represents is leverage. How much leverage can you create for any employee in your company? And at Swan, we're just 3 founders and a bunch of AI agents working alongside us and together. And we have over 200 customers. We're scaling fast, and we are able to create that leverage because we're very focused on designing an architecture of a business that is really focused on human AI collaboration rather than just solely human to human collaboration. So we're trying to reinvent the scaling playbook, the startup playbook eventually.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the very key things too, that you, hopefully I'm using the correct word here, but it's more like you prioritize the automation versus the headcount. You would rather increase like what you can do versus how many people that you can do it with. And I feel like that's like the mission of Swan AI, and that I'm seeing also through your LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so there's nuances to that. Basically, what we're trying to do at Swan is not really to automate ourselves away. And it's not necessarily around automation, it's more actually around augmentation. So on Swan, we are on a journey to find the 100x version of each employee in the company, of each founder right now. And so we're trying to look for that 100x seller, that 100x engineer, that 100x product person. And the way that we're doing it is by building AI agents that are not replacing ourselves, but they're amplifying our work. What we realized is in order for businesses to create leverage, they should focus actually on their employees and build AI agents that could amplify the leverage that these employees could take. And so we're not on a journey to automate ourselves away. What we are doing is finding the zone of genius of each employee within the company, that area where their passion and skills intersect into disproportionate value. And we are building agents that are automating everything that is outside of that zone of genius and amplifying, augmenting everything that is within that zone of genius.
Oh, that's amazing. So like really maximizing the potential basically of the employees, of what they can do. And that also kind of goes into the next question that I had, which was in terms of, I believe that before the company was also called Orchestra, uh, and you kind of pivoted to exactly like during that time to exactly who you guys were targeting. You were basically looking to like between target RevOps and sales. Who did you land more on, and how did that decision come to be as well?
Yeah, so before Swan, like one of our attempts were as building kind of these CRM agents with Orchestra. And what we've realized through that short discovery phase is that the real problem that go to market teams have today is not that they need super powerful agents. What they need actually is to remove all the technical complexity that stands between their ideas and their execution. The thing about go to market is that it's a zero sum game over attention and budget of the buyer. And the way to win is by innovating and by being different on how do you capture attention and how do you get to that budget. And so it's not necessarily about using better technology. It's just about being creative, being innovative, deploying these super impactful playbooks in a way that resonates with your value proposition and your buyer persona. And so these go-to-market teams, they have a sense of what they should do, but the technical complexity that stands between their ideas and their execution is so big, is so hard to actually overcome, so that they just give up and they just fall into these mediocre processes because they say, okay, this is like how our CRM operates. This is how our sales engagement works. And we just need to work around our tech stack. And what we realize in Orchestra is that instead of continuing in the same paradigm where we're requesting our customers to bend around their tech stack, what we should do is to build an engineer that can bend their tech stack around their business. And so finally, they have the control and they can iterate on their go-to-market at the speed of thought and then scale what works with intelligence, not headcount, because they have no more technical barriers at all. And so that what was the main insight that we realized when we were working on these CRM agents in Orchestra, and what drew us to actually building Swan in that sense.
And you also mentioned a little bit too about the movement that you're starting to build. And I was also seeing it on a post too that I think you posted a few weeks ago. But I was very impressed with the speed that you were also able to grow your LinkedIn with. And first, let me kind of like keep this a little bit open. But with LinkedIn, how much do you leverage LinkedIn and kind of like a founder led approach in order to initially get the traction for Swan, if at all?
Yeah, so we grew to over 200 customers in less than 6 months with zero marketing budget, no SDRs, no outbound, just three folks and a bunch of AI agents, of course. But the way we generated demand was through founder-led marketing, basically. And I really advocated for the movement that we're trying to create around this new concept of autonomous business. And if you were listening from the start, so what we're actually doing in the autonomous business space is that we're trying to reinvent, how businesses scale. And my founder-led marketing approach was to share that story with the world, share our own learnings and our own mission to get to that $10 million ARR per employee, and how we're doing it, looking at leverage, not automation, etc. And I did that through mainly LinkedIn and some panels and podcasts on top of that. But all of the demand that we were able to create that translated into over 200 customers came from these channels specifically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't think that like a lot of people really know the power of like exactly what LinkedIn is capable of doing, what LinkedIn is capable of leveraging for their company. I think a lot of people still think it's a little bit of like a glorified CV or like a glorified resume, and they don't really understand how you can connect with people with LinkedIn. And I think Swan also helps a lot with that. So like kind of answering DMs, answering comments, and then making sure that you're just like you mentioned, just like optimizing what you can do with each employee and which with each agent, I should say. Could you even like give an example personally of yourself of how you're even using Swan AI? You mentioned a few, but like let's say day to day, like with let's say with answering DMs, commenting, is there a certain system that you use in order to grow the platform?
So LinkedIn is an amazing place to grow your business. And what people don't really understand that today buyers, they don't trust brands. They trust people. And what you're able to do as a person that stands in front of your brand is much more powerful than what you can just do with just advocating from your brand. And what we did is we built an entire machine around me as the face of the brand and as the person that is advocating for the movement that we're trying to create, etc. And we were able to just drive millions of dollars of pipeline each month out of that LinkedIn machine that we created. And so what happened is that each time we've looked at a phase kind of like in this process of that LinkedIn machine that we tried to create, we look at these bottlenecks that we had and we just started solving them with AI agents, and every layer in that process just unveiled a new challenge. That challenge created a new AI agent, and that agent led to a new layer to unveil itself. And so it wasn't a process where we just thought to ourselves, which agents could help us, turn our LinkedIn game into 100x. It actually emerged from the challenges that we had by building this machine. And so it started from writing the posts itself. So I write, 3 posts each week, and I spend so much time on writing these posts. And it was a huge bottleneck at the beginning. So we built Shakespeare to help me turn this, like 6 hours a week process into like 1 hour a week. And Shakespeare helps me, research online and get insights and really build out these posts that are reliant on my tone and how I write posts, etc. from before. It really knows the ins and outs of our business, our movement, previous posts about specific topics, etc. And so I work with Shakespeare to create these posts that generate consistently over 1 million impressions every month. And from there, if you go like to the next step, what happened is we got so much engagement on these posts that we couldn't cope up with it, and really wouldn't be able to identify leads that are engaging there because the volume was so high. And so we built another agent, the Observer, which was able to monitor the engagement of these posts and surface high intent leads that are engaging with it. and then allow me to reach out to these leads in a very personal way, in a very nuanced way. And so it was able to take, for around like 15,000 engagement points around the month and convert them into conversations that eventually converted into pipeline. And then if you look at another step below that, we had people that were engaging with my posts, but actually sent me connection requests on LinkedIn. So this is like, you can think of it as like a step below in the funnel. And I had periods of times when I got over 300 connections a day, sometimes even more than 1,000 connections a day. So the volume was so big. So we built the connector, which was able to go through these LinkedIn connection requests and filter out the most relevant connection requests from ICP leads and start a conversation with them. And so when I went to my inbox, I just had like 100 messages from leads just waiting for me that reply to these agents, and I can just pick the conversation from there. So it wasn't really about automating the work. It was just about creating the right opportunities for me. So when I focus my resources, it's on qualified leads that are already showing a certain level of intent, and taking the conversation from there requires some nuances, but that's my job to do. And so that's where I kick in. And we had more agents down the funnel, and I can talk about it forever, Jordan, but I think that's a good taste for the audience until now.
No, because I even wanted to dig in a little bit deeper to that, because I think that a lot of times you must get like a lot of DMs just coming into your inbox, and people like trying to sell you something or something like that, and maybe not even necessarily always qualified leads. So it tends to be our instinct to kind of ignore the DMs and just kind of take them for granted maybe sometimes. And it's also good that with a Swan, you're not really so much doing that. You're not so much creating like an automation bot. It's still you at the end of the day who's replying to it. So how important would you say would be responding to the DMs and like really filtering them out versus, let's say, posting versus commenting, kind of the split between those? Which one would you say has the most importance?
So it depends on what is it that you're trying to achieve, I would say. When you're trying to grow your audience, then commenting, posting, this is the most important thing. When you're trying to capture bottom of the funnel, more like trying to create a pipeline, then the magic lives in the DMs. And what we realized is that buyers very reluctant to go on a call with you. They just want to get most of the information before that. And so we were super open to just starting a conversation in the DMs with these buyers. And they were asking us questions. Can you do X? Can you do Y? Do you integrate with that? Do you have SOC 2? Things like that. And we were super open to just managing these conversations on LinkedIn, because we get that. We are buyers ourselves, and we know that we don't want to jump on a call with every seller. So having a human in the loop in the DMs is super important. And we designed Swan from the ground up to be a tool for human AI collaboration. We don't really believe in a future where AI agents replace entire businesses. It's not really about that. There's always a human behind the scenes eventually. And every business should just understand where they need to deploy AI, where they need to have that human touch, and just find out the intricacies of how they work together. And so Swan was really built for human in the loop and for feedback loops, for approvals, etc. It's really core to our product design philosophy.
And that was kind of going to be my follow-up question too, because I just see like a lot of things being automated as well. And do you even think with Swan or with any AI that there's ever going to be a point where we're just going to be able to completely automate everything? Or is there always going to have to be a human in the loop to make that final close for a sale?
You can always speculate about 10, 20 years in the future. I'm a pragmatic person, and I love to look at the next 5 years. And no one knows what would happen after that. Even before AI, you wouldn't be able to know what could happen after 5 more years today in tech. So for the foreseeable future, for the future that you should prepare, humans play actually a super important role in the AI revolution. And you already can see with, for example, AI developers in the coding area, or AI developers like Swan in the GTM space, that your input is super important. And most importantly in GTM, because it's a zero-sum game, You're not trying to get to this ultimate productivity. It's not really about that. It's about being innovative. It's about being better than your competition. It's about getting to that attention, getting to that budget better than your competitors. And so you will always need that human genuity in the process. You will always need that creative point of view in go to market. And if everyone is using OpenAI AI SDRs, then the buyer will just get the same message from everyone, and you will just start bidding for attention. And I don't think that's the future that we're heading towards in go to market. I think that sellers and marketeers will have more impact in an AI native world because they will be the X factor, not the AI.
And there's kind of two routes I want to go down with this. One was also just like touching on the posts as well that you mentioned. I think I'm out of the loop, but Shakespeare, it's a AI. Well, actually, what is Shakespeare? Maybe I just don't know what that
So
is.
Shakespeare, it's an agent that helps me create content for my posts, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah, because what I wanted to ask you was your posts, like they do so well, and I haven't seen like a post of yours that hasn't like doing in the hundreds of engagements. So what was it like initially getting that momentum? And what was it just getting like the first 1,000 followers versus getting like the next 20,000 followers? Have your posts changed a lot from that, or do they always follow a certain pattern?
Yeah, so it started like always, tough. It wasn't easy from the beginning. It's not like the first post just in, gathered tons of engagement points, but I was lucky to kind of like have like a very, the slope was very high in that sense, and I was able to grow super fast. The way that I worked, I worked in an iterative process. I tried to look like whenever I had a good post, I try to learn why it was a good post and try to double down on that, either from a content point of view or from kind of like a technical point of view, from how the post was structured, etc. And I learned a lot through that process. I learned that the first word is like 100x more important than the 100th word of the post. And there's this kind of like equation that you can look at it, that you start, the importance is super high for whatever you say, then it drops, then it goes high again, because you want people to share and to comment, etc. So you want to get that engagement at the end as well. So you learn a bunch of things when you just try to write every week. And so what I recommend to people is, first of all, consistency. And in that consistency, to try to always speculate and hypothesize why this post performed better than the other, and then try to implement that hypothesis in the next post, and then try to see if it did get more posts, more likes, or more comments, etc. And so it really is an iterative process, and it is compounding. The more you get success, the more that the next post will be successful.
And one of the things I saw, and I can't remember which interview it was that you were on, but I really liked how you put it. It kind of like the value of each of the words kind of goes down as you progress with the text. So this way you have to make the hook is like, from how I at least interpreted, the hook is like the most important part. And then after that, it kind of loses the hierarchy in terms of
Yeah.
importance and virality.
So I would actually double down on that. I would say that, so a
Mhm.
hook is like the what you can what you read first, in terms of like the first sentence or two before you kind of like click on that read more. But when you actually look at it from like a mathematical perspective, so the first word is the most important one, right? And so the three first words are much more important than the next five, etc. You want to really capture, you're fighting for the attention. It's like a battle. People want to scroll. They just want to scroll. That's what they want to do. And you're trying to make that pattern interrupt. You're trying to break that. And so, they just read a couple of words and they're thinking to ourselves, I want to scroll, but these words are making me continue to read. So I'll continue reading three more words and maybe I'll scroll. But if these three more words will capture my attention, I will continue, etc. And so that's why you're really fighting for the attention at the first couple of sentences. Then it goes down. But at the end, the importance goes up again because you want people to engage. And so if the ending of the post is not high quality, then you won't get a lot of engagement on the post. And that's what drives a lot of virality as well.
Mm. And are you also very big on like putting links or putting call to actions also during in the post, or is it more to like funnel people to your page and then as they get to know you, then they convert, or it's selling at the post?
Yeah, so there are different philosophies there. No one knows the how does the algo works, and it's funny we're afraid of a world where AI controls everything, but LinkedIn and social media is already a world where AI decides which information passes and which information not, and we're very used to that. But to your question, my philosophy is that I'm trying to create trust with the reader, and I'm not really talking about my product directly. I'm trying to build either trust in the brand or to position the brand as a very forward thinking agentic brand basically. And so I'm not trying to sell them, and so I'm not trying to put like CTAs and links in the post itself. I'm very much. I think that when a buyer just naturally comes to your website on their decision, it just the intent is much higher, and it's much easier to convert them into a call or like a sign up, just because they kind of like thought, this is interesting. I want to reach out. I'm here because I made a decision, not because someone told me to. So what we're aiming for is that compounding effect. You see the post, and you say, you know what? I want to click on the view my website actually CTA that is below my profile, and that's where we're getting most of the traffic from.
It's amazing. And when it comes to creating this entire all of your posts, another thing that stood out to me was, and I don't remember which interviews I saw a few of yours, but it was basically that you had the difference between a founder-led marketing and kind of like a movement-led marketing, and you were trying to kind of like lean more towards the movement-led marketing. Does that still hold true, or are you kind of balancing now between both?
Founder-led marketing is kind of like a channel, like in
Mm-hmm.
my point of view, and it's like a meta channel, because founder-led marketing could be channeled through podcasts and LinkedIn, etc. But it is a channel of its own in that sense, because you can have partner-led growth and you can have founder-led growth, right? These are like different channels, different people that are growing your brand in that sense. So that's how I look at founder-led marketing. And movement, and my perspective, is kind of like a go-to-market strategy, actually. So it's something more comprehensive. And the difference is between building a movement than just going to market without a movement, like in the regular playbook, is that in a movement, all these channels compound. Basically, they add value to each other. So if you're succeeding in founder-led marketing, that helps you with your community, with your events, with your partner-led motion, with SEO, with everything. Basically, when you're just the regular playbook, so these are like disparate channels where you have ads, and you're trying to post on LinkedIn as a founder, and maybe that is successful, but they don't have any connection to each other. You can be successful as founder-led marketeer in that sense, and just having successful posts, but they don't contribute to the success of other channels in that way. And in a movement, because what you're trying to push is a narrative that a societal transformation. You want to say the future of businesses is actually human AI collaboration. It's not AI replacement, it's human empowerment, and you're trying to push for that societal change. And if businesses will accept that societal change, then they will go to your product, because they know that your product is designed to support that societal change. And so the more that idea grows within your audience, the more they interact with different channels, and they're more receptive to these channels. And so that's why it's a play to amplify everything that creates this compounding growth channel.
Mm-hmm. And it can become also like pretty divisive too, because you kind of mentioned also like challenging the status quo, or challenging like certain mentalities. And even right now, like that concept that you guys have of like getting with like a head count of 3 and then getting to 10 million each is like, I don't know, I think it's something that's like unheard of as well. You get a lot of pushback as well, and is that also uh, part of the movement based growth that you're going by?
Yeah, definitely. So if no one hates what you're saying, then it means that you're not saying something interesting. You're not really standing for something. And so I think that in B2B marketing, it's so boring. And people just try to focus on the consensus, and they try to focus on, the playbooks. Just don't mess with anyone, don't hurt anyone. And that's how you get to just mediocre results. And if we're in an industry, if you're in a startup or you're like in high tech or anything around that, everything is moving so fast. And if you're settled for mediocrity, then you will just lose your business eventually. And so the way that we're looking at our narrative is that we have this point of view that we're trying to challenge the challenger. What does that mean? It means that the buyer has their own status quo, how they're working today. And then they have all these vendors that are telling them, you should change the way that you work. You should buy my solution, right? And so what like 99% of B2B companies do, they challenge the status quo, right? So you're working with Excels, oh, you should use my, super Excel solution. That would be better, right? And so if you just join the herd, then no one will hear your voice. And so the smart thing to do as a newcomer in the space, if you're an enterprise, like, you're like a legacy player, maybe that's different. But when you're a newcomer in the space, then the right thing to do is actually challenge the challenger. So everyone is telling that you need to change the way that you work. I'm actually telling you that everyone is wrong. Everyone is telling you to change the way they work into something, into X, but X is actually not the future. X is a very wrong path to follow. And if you would follow that route, then you would lose your business eventually. You should actually follow my route. And so that's what we're doing with Swan, because the first wave of AI startups, they had this myth that they try to push for these AI employees, these digital co-workers, where, you could just replace your entire workforce with AI agents, and that's it. You have an AI SDR, you have an AI support rep, etc. And we don't believe in that future. We believe in a future where, human AI collaboration creates just new roles and, gives space for new agents to fulfill different processes. And you come to these realization in an iterative process. You have an AI solution it's not designed for perfection. It's actually designed for adaptation. And so that's how we're challenging the status quo. We're not selling you perfection because we don't believe that perfection exists. We're selling you a solution that can be adaptable to your business, to your conclusions, can grow with you, and you can then figure out what's your human AI collaboration strategy that is uniquely designed for your go-to-market strategy. And so that is kind of like an example of how we're encompassing this notion of challenging the challenger rather than just the boring challenging the status quo.
Yeah. And even you feel like that's like something that's more effective when you're kind of growing as well with your audience versus you projecting an opinion, or do those kind of go like hand in hand, both of them?
I think that if you're just going through the regular playbook, you're playing defense, and playing defense is for losers. And in this industry and this timing with the AI revolution, you got to play offense. And honestly, even if you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, or if you're a CEO of like a 10 people startup, you got to play offense right now, and you got to challenge the challenger in that sense.
There's two more questions just before we wrap it up. And one is that what is the timeline that you guys have predicted that to get the 10 million per employee? Do you have it set in stone, or?
Yeah, so it's hard for us to know exactly. And for us, it was more about kind of having like a North Star for the company. What we're trying to do is change the narrative from getting to $1 billion valuation, which doesn't really mean anything. We have so much these quote unquote unicorns that, shut down, were sold for pennies. They didn't really create any value in the world. And so we know that is a vanity metric to get to $1 billion valuation. So what we're trying to do is change the narrative from chasing these valuations to actually chasing value creation, to actually chasing leverage. And so that's how we said we want to get to $10 million ARR, because that's what we're focused on. We're focused on leverage, not on valuation. And in terms of timeline, for us, it's either go big or go home. We're not trying to build like a lifestyle business when it can kind of like incrementally grow. We're trying to look for these exponential growth curves and hopefully get to that milestone in the next 24 months.
Wow, that's amazing. In 24 months. That's awesome. So the last question to wrap the segment up is, if you could go back to your 21, 25-year-old self within that range, what piece of advice would you give them?
I would tell them that it's a game of consistency, and you've been dealt with specific cards, and you just need to play to your cards and don't fall in love with others people's cards. You are who you are, and just be consistent. And consistency wins talent, wins luck. It can sustain everything, basically. And that's what you really need as a founder, as an operator, as a leader to achieve your goals. It's consistency and just believing in your cards that you've been dealt with.
It's amazing. So Amos Bar-Joseph, the CEO of Swan AI. I know definitely you're big on LinkedIn, but is there any other place that that people can find you or reach out?
Yeah, so I have the Big Shift newsletter, a place where I just share, the behind the scenes of how we're building our autonomous business, the wins and losses and learnings and frameworks. So we might share a link to that in, the details afterwards. And I also have a digital clone in ChatGPT that you can just chat with. It's called Autonomous, and you can just ask it questions about how we're building our business, etc. It knows all of the playbooks in and out. So if you were curious about something after this session, you can just go to Autonomous directly and ask it whatever you want.
Perfect. We'll be linking these in the show notes, so you guys can check down in the description. And thank you so much, Amos. I know you have a flight to catch, so
Yes.
we'll keep this one brief. But thank you so much, Amos, for jumping on with me today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Jordan.